This, of course, was the time to sell, right around the all-time high when MVRVs were through the roof. MVRVs right now still show that if you were to buy right now, you'd be doing so at less risk because your average peers are in pain.
Hey folks, welcome into the Thinking Crypto podcast. I'm your host, Tony Edward, and joining me today is Brian from Santiment. We are going to do a deep dive into the metrics for Bitcoin and all the top altcoins to get an idea of what's happening in this market. Brian, great to see you.
Good to see you, Tony. It's still a bit of a slog out there, and we're hoping things can turn around, but lots we can go over today with how the markets are reacting, targeting MicroStrategy and all sorts of fun discussions about Trump's MRI and how that might relate to crypto. People are really trying to find reasoning for why we're slumping as much as we have.
Well, Brian, it's like the saying, a narrative follows price, right? When the price is going up, it's, crypto's taking over the world. When the price is going down, everything's going to collapse. MicroStrategy, Tether's going to collapse. China's banning crypto. Yep. It's so funny how that cyclical pattern plays out, and the whales and the market makers use that to their advantage.
According to retail, there is no explanation needed when crypto goes up, but there are lots and lots of accusations of market manipulation when the opposite happens.
Yeah, but at the foundational level of it is all cyclical. Now, yes, markets do top out at some point, and we enter into a bear market, but it's funny, these things pop up every time the price is down. And then, when the price starts going back up, all of a sudden you see the euphoric, greedy narratives, right? This train can't be stopped, and it's not going to stop. It's going to keep going higher and higher.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's just, there are so many side conversations of who the biggest scapegoat out there should be right now. And, Saylor's taking his lumps. And I think as we dig into some data, we'll see what level of FUD there really is, because as we've talked about in many previous episodes, the FUD is the key to finding the bottom. So we need to see enough of it to be sure that things are about to get a little better.
So why don't we look at the sentiment data and what people are talking about, what's driving the fear and the FUD and all these things?
Let's do it. So for starters, of course, we've got the 7-day returns, which are as bloody as they feel. Ethereum down 7.5%, Bitcoin down a little over 4%. Look at Zcash. We talked just last episode about how much of a darling it's been in spite of the rocky price performances we've seen the last couple of months. And now it's just getting brutalized, down 40% in the past week. So outside of a few, slight gainers like Monero and Leo, it's just looking pretty red throughout. And even social volume, like this is very interesting to me, Tony. Almost all assets are getting significantly less discussion compared to a week ago. So we talk about the market starting to get complacent and no longer getting kind of that push and pull and debate from traders. We're kind of reaching that point here now that December's hit. And maybe part of that's due to Thanksgiving. Of course, the largest portion of this is due to US discourse, even though crypto is global. But I do think that the declining level of discussion overall in crypto is a sign of FUD itself and could be considered somewhat of a good sign. So something that we'll be keeping an eye on.
Yeah, and I can anecdotally say my views have gone down. I'm getting less engagement on my videos. So to your point, there's a bit of the holidays here in the United States, but also they're not feeling excited about crypto right now. They're feeling fear. They're like depressed, right? Some have given up like, hey, I'm not even going to pay attention to this right now because it's just a mess.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's naturally everyone's going to be talking a lot more about crypto when things are going up, but even the last couple of months when it's been flat, there's at least been like those polarizing opinions popping up and, Capo releasing a prediction that everyone gets viral and bloodthirsty about. And now it's just, of course, there's still posts that are getting attention, but there's just much less. And I'm with you. Even Santiment's content, it's a little less engaged than usual. And we know it's the same kind of quality, just like we know your videos are the same quality. But when there's less people interested in trading right now, it's just naturally going to affect all of us.
Oh, absolutely. So, what are some of the things, people are searching or sharing? Is it like MSTR, tariffs, um, I don't know,
Yeah.
Fed and QT, anything like that?
Yeah, certainly all of those things are popping up. According to our algorithm that looks at the stories that are kind of generating the most attention compared to normal, just the general discussion about market volatility. Volatility is kind of synonymous with going down. Nobody talks about volatility in the upward direction these days, but starting off with a decline in December. So that's kind of just leading the way. A lot of people, interestingly, you'll notice in the summary here, they're attributing the December fall with a notable sell off amid rising Japan 2-year government bond yields
Hmm.
hitting 1% for the first time since '08. Sounds concerning, but can this really impact crypto that much? Should people be attributing the entire decline of crypto, which is not supposed to be impacted by macroeconomic or global events quite the way that stock markets are? Should they be, putting that much of a precedent on it? Especially Japan. Of course, it's a very large economy, but it's not the US. Is Japan's 2-year government bond yields hitting 1% really the reason that crypto is tanking? Can't disprove it, but I can be skeptical for sure.
Yeah, and again, I think people are looking for narratives, right? Human beings, we need stories, right? It's like, why is this going on? Oh, it's this reason
Mhm.
versus what we know of the data, the cyclicality of markets. And yes, sometimes these negative news items could trigger a market sell-off, absolutely. But at the end of the day, it's more often the cyclical aspect of the market.
Yeah, well said. And we've got things like bullish silver amid Japan rate hikes, Cyber Monday, crypto deals. That's a topic right now. And then here's Sailor at number 4. MicroStrategy, led by Michael Saylor, purchased 130 Bitcoin at around 89.9K each, raising total holdings to 650,000 BTC. The company also established a 1.44 billion USD reserve to cover preferred dividends and interest payments funded through at the market stock sales. So, in other words, sailors coming out saying they're buying more, no big deal. Meanwhile, MicroStrategy, at least it started today. The stock markets are still an hour from closing based on the time we're recording, but started the day down about 12%. So a lot of people were talking about how MicroStrategy is finally over. Uh, things are done. It is trailing Bitcoin, like somewhat notably, but at the same time, I think it's a bit of an overreaction to target MicroStrategy quite to the level that they are and calling it a scam, um, because we just had a 4-day break in the US. The markets were open for like a few hours on Friday. I know that, but they were closed Thursday. During the Thursday to Sunday trading, Bitcoin and crypto just tanked. So all of a sudden, MicroStrategy opens up down like double what Bitcoin's decline is. So everyone's going, oh, MicroStrategy is just getting crushed because they're a scam. But what I actually think is blindsiding traders is they're forgetting about that Thursday and Friday trading that MicroStrategy wasn't affected by because markets were mostly closed. Uh, at least that's kind of how I'm seeing it. You can have your opinions about whether they can, turn things around. I know MicroStrategy is really getting crapped on, if you will, but I don't have a strong opinion the way the crowd does. I think it's a company that's run by Saylor that is doing a lot of somewhat transparent things and somewhat not so transparent things, and people are kind of forming their opinion based on whatever the prices of MSTR are doing any given day. Of
Yeah, absolutely. And I know there's a lot of eyes on MicroStrategy just because of the correlation with Bitcoin and people
course.
trying to see if their top is in or not. So, and then look, if you're shorting Bitcoin right now, which I think a lot of people are, that's an easy target, right? To be out there and say, look, MicroStrategy is going to collapse, and you got the narrative.
Yeah, and MicroStrategy, for those who aren't in the know, it's something a lot of people really like having as a way to get exposure to crypto without owning crypto, just like the ETFs. But with MicroStrategy, it's slightly leveraged just
Mm.
naturally. It kind of I forget the exact number, but something like a 2x leverage stock that correlates fairly well, but not perfectly with Bitcoin. So when it's really plummeting, it plummets far more severely than Bitcoin. And then people start to open their eyes and go, wow, what a scam MicroStrategy is. And I know there's plenty of intricacies to why people either love it or hate it. But the main reason is when prices go way down all of a sudden, uh, people get very vocal about Saylor being a scam artist and a grifter and all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to look at funding rates here because you mentioned it, and we do have the data to show that on Binance, yeah, there have been some shorts. They've turned long a bit today, interestingly. So people aren't quite believing this dip just yet. It looks to be um, something that traders are hoping to long and expect to bounce, which is not good. We want to see people shorting as it goes down, and that will often indicate the bottom. Those shorts then get liquidated, like right here, and we bounce back up. So Binance, those shorts have at least temporarily stopped. They actually look a little more consistent on BitMEX. So there are quite a few of these shorts going on there. I would just wait until you're getting really extreme shorts if you're looking for a very confident signal on when precisely to buy. There's a reason we don't say buy exactly at 81K or 77K, because it depends on stuff like this, like how are traders reacting to different prices in real time. We can't predict that all of the shorts are going to suddenly pop up at 80K, but we can see as they start to happen, like, okay, that's a sign that we're going to bounce because there's a lot of shorts that are ready to be liquidated and act as rocket fuel to push prices back up.
Yeah, absolutely. So it could potentially be some more downside. We're gonna just have to wait and see.
Based on funding rates, yeah. I mean, there's plenty of data that we can go over that I've kind of prepared here. I definitely want to look at what whales are doing, like we always do.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's not, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, Brian, I've been looking at this chart every day, and man, it keeps going down.
Still not ideal. The ideal condition, as I talked about in a report I did a few weeks back, is green line goes up, red line goes down. Like right here in September, and what do you know? Early October, we got that all-time high. Since that time, about a week after the all-time high, the 10 to 10K BTC wallets have dropped by about 0.6% of the entire supply. That's a lot. They've dropped almost 1% of their holdings. Meanwhile, retail keeps going up. So we need to see like the exact opposite of this. And it hasn't stopped yet. Retail is still buying the dip. They are not quite showing the fear that we are hoping for, at least based on what the numbers are showing of wallets that have zero point 0.01 BTC or less in them.
Wow. One of the things I was looking back at is in Q1, Q2 of 2024, where there was a big, massive dump by the whales. It didn't mean the bull market was over, but that was the buy the rumor, sell the news event for the Bitcoin ETF. But, that doesn't mean that that pattern repeats now, that it's just another local top. It could be the top is in, but, this is a fun part of investing, I guess. We got to be patient, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. I do want to check that out really quick with you and just see if there's some indication as to what they were doing here. So Q1 of 2024, right about here, we suddenly see in late January, they go on a big tear here. So I think this is what you're referring to. The red line, notice how it's mostly going way down.
Yep.
Green line's going way up. And we hit the then all-time high in March of 2024, getting above 73K, which a ton of people were celebrating. And then shortly after that all-time high, that's when they start to drop. So exactly right.
Yeah, and it was a big drop. I mean, just look at that line. If I could see the date here, around June or so, that massive drop moving
Oh,
forward.
right here.
Yeah, right. That's a huge decline. Maybe not this at the same rate we're seeing right now, but it's hope. I guess it's some hopium I'm trying to offer some people.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, of course, after July 4th or so, for those who remember, it was either a day before or a day after the attempted Trump assassination. And all of a sudden, whales just went on a massive accumulation streak. I don't know if that triggered their thoughts that would make them believe that Trump was about to get elected. They ended up being right, of course, if that was the case. And they just kept accumulating after he was elected. And then once he was inaugurated, it was kind of a weird, wishy washy, buy the rumor, sell the news situation. But you can just see how much control this green line has on prices. When it's going up, generally, prices are following pretty consistently.
Oh, absolutely. Maybe we could look at the Bitcoin MVRV.
So definitely still in the negative. I was looking at this yesterday. So the blue line here indicates the long-term trend. Traders that have been active in the last year are down 16% on average. Traders active in the past 30 days are down a little over 5% on average. Both good signs. Ideally, the times to buy are when both of these lines are in the negative below the zero axis. They certainly are. They're not severely in the negative like they were back about 10-ish days ago, but it's still a great sign to see that they haven't popped anywhere near 0% yet. So this, of course, was the time to sell right around the all-time high when MVRVs were through the roof. MVRVs right now still show that if you were to buy right now, you'd be doing so at less risk because your average peers are in pain.
Interesting. And on one hand, I understand like this from a local top perspective, but I wonder what it means if let's say the market top is in completely, and if these guys are going to capitulate at some point, but then there are also relief rallies. Nothing goes down in a straight line. So yeah. Okay. Interesting. What about ETF inflows and outflows? I know that.
Let's give that a look.
Yeah.
Give me just a moment to load that up. We did have our team get this back up to date. Yeah, we have data basically right up until Thanksgiving. We aren't going to have today's data till the end of the day, but there were still mostly outflows going on. 7 of the last 10 trading days that we have data on do show that this decline since the all-time high has been mostly followed with people slowly and gradually taking more and more of their money off exchanges when it comes to net differences. And that's a good thing because we've seen more and more that these ETFs are being controlled by retail as much as institutionals. And FUD tends to lead to bounces while these big spikes and inflows, you would think for the long term, they're good. But short term, when you got just a massive inflow all of a sudden, it's usually followed by a top like here, and especially here right at that all-time high. So I don't mind the fact that people are moving their money out of ETFs. It simply means that people don't trust Bitcoin right now, but people not trusting Bitcoin is not the worst problem in the world. It can actually benefit crypto's bounce in the long run. So outflows mostly.
Yeah, it's been kind of on a tear, although, recently we saw some days of inflows, but majority of it has been outflows. So similar to what the whales are doing, right? Just distribution.
Exactly. I don't put as much priority into this as I do, that whale chart that we were just looking at. And what I do put a lot of priority into is this positive versus negative sentiment, which is still indicating that we're back in negative range after being very bullish over the holidays. When we had that rebound above 90K, it already seems like forever ago, but on Thanksgiving, we were getting back to 91K and people were optimistic that the bottom was in. Turned out to be incorrect. We definitely have fallen right back down almost to that scary bottom from just 10 days ago. So naturally, the sentiment has fallen along with them. So the data here is continuing to show that people are selling at the bottoms, buying at the tops, and then selling at the bottoms again, as usual.
Man. And I know I've been tracking some other things where it shows we've been in extreme fear for a while. So to your point, people got a little excited. Oh, we're seeing a bit of a bounce, but that was short-lived.
Exactly. Yeah, and they were, to their credit, people did start to get fearful starting about 3 weeks ago when we were still, dancing a little above 100K, and they just got more and more fearful until we just saw extreme levels of bearish content outpacing bullish content on social media. And that was the signal we were finally at that bottom. It was almost what we saw on that October 10th FUD day when Trump was about to reintroduce 100% tariffs on China.
Mm. Let's look at altcoins. Maybe we can do Ethereum.
Yeah,
Many altcoins are suffering right now. As they mostly follow Bitcoin.
totally. We'll stick with sentiment while we're here. And it is looking like there's a little bearishness going on with Ethereum. When we did our video a couple weeks ago, we were talking about so much attention was on Bitcoin and Ethereum, and being, everything else, even XRP, was being kind of ignored relatively to the top two. And it still seems like that's a little bit of the case. Ethereum looks very similar to Bitcoin. There's just an equal level of, what have you done for me lately? People sell off when it's down, buy in when it's up, sell off again when it's down, as we are right now. So I see very, very little difference between BTC and Ethereum. Both are showing a lot of fear. And if we go to XRP, yeah, it's still kind of showing mixed signals. It's not nearly as doom and gloom for XRP as it is for BTC and ETH. So call that a result of less discussion related to it or something else. But, XRP is barely hanging on to $2 at the time of this recording. We'll see if it does fall below 2, whether the narrative suddenly changes due to that psychological support breaking.
Oh, yeah. What about Solana and Zcash for sentiment?
Yeah, I'm very interested in Zcash, especially after this 40% drop. Solana, business as usual. I don't see anything out of the ordinary. This was a big anomaly, I think, due to some bot activity that settled down. But, if I cut off that part, it's going to look pretty much middle of the road. A little bit of euphoria here, which is interesting. Got very high right before Thanksgiving when prices were rebounding, but it's in the middle. I don't see anything special going on with its sentiment. Not high, not low.
I think those little peaks that we see, even like on the XRP chart and so forth, sometimes there's news announcements and they get crypto Twitter a little excited, but then it fades because the price action doesn't match the sentiment or the announcement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's ETF announcements and speculation of more, stuff like that all the time.
Exactly.
So ZEC, let's see what we see here. Surprisingly not crazy. And my theory on this would be the fact that they weren't really believing in this rally in the first place, right? Like, other than this interesting little buy the dip euphoria here on October 16th, 17th, that was almost 2 months ago now, we've not really seen any crazy highs or crazy low in sentiment, maybe just a little bit right there. But this is completely normal. It's about an equal amount of bullish versus bearish comments. And it seems like, I just don't think ZEC is kind of obtaining the big crowd that you would think it would from this kind of massive, what was it, like a 10x or so in price, 12x. So yeah, it just seems like sentiment's kind of business as usual. There's still a lot of like volatile, like ups and downs, but these aren't that extreme compared to like what we saw back when Zcash was almost completely off people's radars.
That's so interesting. Maybe it's like this disbelief hated rally, right? We don't think it's going to keep going, but then it does. But then, when it gets new highs and the crowd starts buying and then they get dumped on.
Yeah. The way people are perceiving, and I'm just generalizing the crowd, but the way they view Zcash kind of reminds me of Hex from a couple years ago with Richard Hart and that whole like, is it a scam? Is it not a scam? And people either loved him or hated him. That was at least, he would get on interviews and people would have polarizing things to say about it. Zcash doesn't even really seem to get nearly the amount of PR and tends to be in the news only when its price is doing something significant. Otherwise, it's just another grandpa privacy coin to a lot of people.
Sure. Wow. If we can look at the MVRV for Ethereum and XRP.
So when it comes to Ethereum's MVRV, as expected, it's very similar to Bitcoin's. Short term, doing a little bit worse. Average 30-day returns are at about negative 8.8%. That's generally a pretty good buy zone. Negative 17.8% for long-term traders. That generally is a great buy zone. So both indicate there's some justification to buy the dip right now. Again, I highly recommend waiting until it's got some institutional support and those whales are starting to accumulate. But it's still a better than usual time, according to the math, to at least dip your toes in, based solely on the fact that peers are in so much pain in what's supposed to be a zero-sum game.
Yeah, and this aligns with the market sentiment, right? Extreme fear, people giving up. In addition, you have, maybe from a technical analysis standpoint, the price is at lows, maybe in the oversold zone. So, like they say, buy the blood on the streets, but that's a hard thing for a lot of people to do.
Exactly. That's why we like MVRV, because it actually visualizes blood in the streets. If we go to all-time prices for Ethereum, like, how are you going to find where the blood in the streets is based on this? Are you comparing it to 2017? Because there's no blood compared to 2017. Prices are up 5,059% since then, but it's very difficult to take a certain time frame and just say, okay, now they're in pain. Okay, now they're super euphoric. That's why MVRV can just snapshot you, like, how does the zero-sum game look? Because this isn't the average person's holdings. This is just the average or the market value over time for Ethereum. We need to know how your peers, who you're trading with, whenever you make a buy, someone's selling it to you. Whenever you're selling, someone's buying from you. So that's really the best way to analyze how high or how low markets really are.
Yeah, absolutely. What about XRP?
XRP is actually looking similar. It's the lowest of the three compared to Bitcoin and Ethereum. So 30-day returns down at negative 10.8, 365-day returns all the way down at negative 20.5%. If we visualize compared to other times, it's looking like a better buy zone than what we saw at the beginning of November, about a month ago, and almost as good of an opportunity as it was 10 days ago when it bottomed out all the way to about 187 or so. So all three look like candidates to, at least consider dollar cost averaging. And I'm saying that with a big asterisk, because if whales keep dumping, people are going to continue to be in pain for a bit longer. So this is kind of under the assumption that whales start to turn things around, and then you're starting to get some serious justification to buy.
Final item here, Brian. Curious what's happening with meme coins. We haven't heard anything, but this past week, or over the past 2 weeks, Dogecoin ETFs have been launched, spot ETFs by Grayscale, Bitwise. So I'm just curious, what's happening there, if it's all dried up or, is it losing liquidity and things like that?
Yeah, we don't have Memecoin ETF data yet, but I am very interested to see how, the Doge ETF plays out and things like that. I don't think that there's zero activity or anything, but you're right. From the posts I've read, it's pretty minimal right now. There just isn't much interest when meme coins are kind of getting memed right now because they're just getting so destroyed. But what I did make about a week ago was this chart that shows the social dominance of the top 5 overall non-stable coins. So we're looking at here, I could show you the formula. So we've got Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Binance Coin, and Solana. That's the numerator. And we're taking their overall discussion, piece of the pie of how much people are talking about them, versus the piece of the pie of Dogecoin, Shiba Inu, Meme, Pepe, and Trump coin. And I'm seeing a little correlation here. When top caps are getting super high, it kind of is an interesting bag where it means there's a turnaround. It doesn't necessarily mean people are greedy, because people are actually more greedy when they're talking about meme coins a lot. But from what I've gathered, like extreme points, like when we get above here, that tends to be a market turnaround a lot of the time, like here, or even here. These are kind of tops and bottoms. And then the same goes for when it's really low. So this is still experimental. So I'm just kind of thinking out loud. From my perspective, high extremes tend to mean there's a reversal. Low extremes also tend to mean there's a reversal. When this data isn't very helpful is when it's kind of in the middle. Right now, it's kind of stuck right in the middle. So I wish I had something very exciting to report right now. But if you see, I could share this link for you so you could put it in the bio, Tony, if you'd like. But
Sure.
if you see things going above here or way down here, just look for highs and lows. That's when you're typically seeing a shift in the mind share of the crowd, where they're going from talking about Bitcoin and Ethereum a lot to, Dogecoin and Shiba and Trump a lot, or vice versa. And that tends to be the moment when, those algos are selling or buying, and suddenly there's a big shift.
Interesting. So, Brian, I often end our episodes by saying, hopefully we are seeing better results in the market. The market's going up. So I don't know if I've been jinxing it. So I'm going to say, I hope we don't see higher prices. I hope we continue to go lower. And maybe the opposite happens.
There you go. You'll get a ton of likes for that, Tony, I'm sure.
All right, good stuff, Ryan. I'll see you in 2 weeks, and we'll see, how the data is. But I love going through the data and the amount of information Sentiment provides, because, like I said, I've been looking at some of these charts every day. It's just so fascinating, especially in these volatile times.
Thanks, Tony. Always a pleasure. I'm excited to touch base in mid-December and see where we're at.